little sales pitch, but more importantly, this is a power bank. This is something that many of you could desperately use, but you just don't know it yet, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So let's get started right away. First of all, let's talk about the company Ampace. Ampace is a green company. They're out to save the world. This is what they do. They actually have built the most batteries for drone tech, EVs, phones, you name it. Right now they are, global distribution is in 29 different countries, and we're talking about over 41 million users of their battery tech. So, huge company. And this whole thing in here, it's all been tested in ways that you could not imagine. Let me just paint a picture for you. Imagine going over 7,000 meters. That's 23,000 feet. Mount Everest. These units, these power stations all manage to go up there and provide power along with the solar panels. So as we're talking later on, we're going to be talking about pairing these together, but we're going to start individually with this particular unit. And this unit has a ton of tech. This is the 1500. And the 1500, it is the big one. This is the big enchilada amongst all of them. So let's talk about what this does. This is a portable power station. And it's a big one too. It has 4 different USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports. It also has 4 AC ports and 1, 2, 3 DC ports there. That's including this large port at the bottom. This is what you would use if you have a car connection. The DC power, some people call it a cigarette lighter, you know, that round thing. And we'll be talking about that in a second. So moving on, we're going to talk about all of the goodies that are on here. So let's get started, shall we? Now, first of all, what type of usage for something like this? This is a battery bank that can actually give you 2,500 watts of power, and then it has a special boost mode that actually can go much higher. That means that you can run this at a work site or a large campsite. And when I mean work site, I mean that you can actually run a skill saw off this or a power drill. You can also charge many batteries using this. As you can see from the front of it, several different things that can be powered at the same time. And the cool part is this can actually be powered by several different things as well. And I'll cover that in just a second. So this has a giant battery inside of it, right? And it can power, once again, a lot. But how long do you think it takes for something like this to actually get fully powered? A couple hours, a couple days? To charge this up all the way, I'm going to leave that and let you guys think about it. Now, for those of you who have just joined us, don't forget to go to Ampace's website, and that way you can join in the conversation. And that way we can talk and you guys can actually interact with me, which would be super cool, right? Okay, so moving on, let's talk about this unit. This is a heavy duty power bank, okay? It is actually equipped to run for, up to 15 years. I know that sounds crazy, so check this out. What they do is they have this super tested, so it can go from all the way down to 0 and fully charged 6,000 times. So if you do the math, that can be anywhere between 10 and 15 years, depending on your usage. So that's a lot, and it actually outperforms many different competitors who have the same power output. Now, it's a big unit, okay? This is the biggest amongst everything that's here. It's nearly 37 pounds, but it also is small enough to where it can fit between, say, a bed and your computer table. It can also fit in an RV, that type of thing. So this is something that is fantastic for home use, and I'll explain why. Let's say you have a power outage, okay? If you leave this plugged in, it's using pure sine technology in order to power your computer. So if your computer's plugged into it, right, and you have a surge and it suddenly kills everything in terms of electricity, this will keep running. There'll be no interruption to your computer that's running or other appliances. But here's the cool part. With the pure sine technology, it's running a sine wave that doesn't spike, so it won't hurt your electronic devices. There are a lot of power units out there that are just running straight, and because of that, they can spike and hurt your electronic units. Now, let's see what type of comments we got going on over here. Howdy, folks. Really nice to see you. Thank you. You want to know how much this is? Okay. Give me a second and I will get there. Thank you very much for writing in. Remember, if you've just joined us, go to Ampace's website and you'll be able to interact directly. All right. And I'm going to be checking with you guys just about every product as we move on. But once again, this is kind of like the big enchilada, so that's why we're going to spend a lot of time on it. So remember I was talking about how long it takes to power? You plug this into an AC unit. I bet you some of you guys are guessing 3 or 4 hours. Nope, less than 1. That's how long this takes to power up. And here's the cool part. If it's plugged into solar, it can take as little as 3 hours to fully power, provided that you have the right sunlight and the right amount of solar cells working with it. Plug it into a car, a couple hours, and you're fully charged. This unit charges rapidly, and here is the big point. There is an app that you can use through Ampace that will allow you to use the A-Boost mode. That mode allows you to go to that super fast charging. And it also allows you to use this system when you're not around and monitor it. And not just this one either. It's also including these. Okay, so let's move on and we're going to talk about pricing. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to move that slide down one more time, back maybe 2 more, and we're going to talk about pricing because it's special today. There we go. Today's pricing for this unit, normally $1,399. Today, $499. There you go. Excellent power. By the way, for those of you who own an RV or a recreational vehicle, a trailer or camper, something like that, this is a great substitute for a loud gas generator. No smell, no noise, nothing. This thing is super quiet. As a matter of fact, this is one of the more quiet units out there. It does have a fan in here, but it runs at around 30 decibels or less, so it is very difficult to hear. And I can almost guarantee you that you will not be able to hear it when you're snoring and sleep. It is super, super quiet. You can actually see where the vents are here. Now, before we move on, I wanted to show you guys how you can actually power this unit. Back here, this is where you can plug in either AC or DC. Now, there's 2 different types of DC that you can plug in, once again, from your car and also from solar panels. So, with this unit, you get, this is your DC cord here. So this will be plugged into your car, and this plugs back here. Or you have an AC as well. I got a mess of cords here, that's my fault. And these cords, there we go. That's the AC. So it plugs right into your wall. And it also comes with an additional cord that can go directly into a solar panel. So you have these 3 different cords that can plug into the back, meaning that this thing can be plugged in at home, in your car, at a campsite. And now the special part about this unit, and I'm going to turn this around and make sure it's turned on for you guys so you can quickly see how it runs. Now, all of these units have a very similar type of display. And this display is going to show you how much time you have with it, how much power you actually have in percentage, and then it's going to show input and output on this side. So when you have it plugged in, you can see how much power is going out. When you have something plugged into it, you can see how much power is coming in. How much power is coming in? Interesting. There actually may be a little bit of a connection with that, and we're going to cover that in just a second. But once again, $499 today. That is a 64% drop in price. One more thing I wanted to cover, the light. And this is really cool to have, and when we get to a different device, I'm going to go into more detail, but this has a couple All right, and hopefully we have sound back, and I'm gonna clip this on. And if you guys are able to hear me, by all means, let me know. Sorry, this is what happens with text. This is not an Ampace device, by the way, so there you go. But I think we're cool with sound, and we're moving on, which is perfect timing, and I'll tell you why. That's because we have that auxiliary power I was talking about. Now, see this flap? It's actually made out of rubber, and it's built specifically to keep out rain and dust and everything else. You open it up and you have a very unusual looking plug right here, an input. Well, that's because it can be plugged in by an external power source. I'm going to show you. Here we go. Now, it looks like the 1500, but it's not. So we're a little bit behind with slides, so we're going to move forward onto this one. This is the extra battery power station. What does it mean? Well, you may notice no plugs here, and really nothing going on over here. However, it is built specifically to be an extra power station, okay? And just like the big boy here, the 1500, this does produce between 2500 and also can go up to 3500 watts. And the whole thing about this is that it is built to work in tandem with the 1500, but it can also work with several other batteries. Now picture this, up to 7, by the way. If you have, let's say, a barn and it's not located anywhere near power, or a campsite with many, many, many people, and you need to power it for many days, well, you can have up to 7 of these batteries working in series, plugged into each other, and then plugged into this. And this will allow, turn this around this way, this will allow you guys to have power for a long time, sustainable power. What do I mean by sustainable? Well, you can also plug in a solar panel into this. So got a couple of these, some solar panels feeding into it. That wattage is converted to electricity, which is stored and then used by this. Over the long term, this is an outstanding source of power for people who are off the grid. Now, let's talk about how it works. There is a hatch on the roof, ba-bum, and inside a very thick cord. We are talking about a lot of power here. So this cord is built specifically to work with this and nothing else other than its brethren. So in other words, if you buy a couple of these, then you're able to use this cord to plug one into the other, until you eventually plug into this. Now, how does that work? Well, let's turn this around. Now, I'm trying to do this as carefully as possible, but guys may have noticed I'm kind of a big moose, so moving things around is not exactly my forte in terms of doing it in a pleasant manner. I'm no ballerina, but look at this. So this cord here plugs in up here to the top, like so, and then this plugs into that side little flap I was showing you right here. So, here we go. I'm going to turn this around. Once again, I know this is an unpleasant angle. You're probably being blinded by my bald head. And in we go. And there it is. So, just that easy, just that simple. You're able to plug this into this. Now, see that extra port right here? That's for another unit like this being plugged into this. And it'll automatically take that power and shove it all the way over to the 1500. It just works that simple. You just have to make sure it's on. Otherwise, it works great. Now, there is an app that I mentioned before, and that app will also tell you how these are doing. So everything is connected with the Ampace app with these units. Now, question for you. This is a big old battery, right? So it's been tested just like the other one 6,000 times. It can be charged from 0 all the way to max and then decharged again. Tested at high elevation, tested like 3 below 0 Fahrenheit all the way up to like 113 degrees, tested in a variety of different environments, just like all these other units. What do you think one of these costs? Well, normally pricing is $599, but today, $499. And that's right, $100 off. So there you go. Get a couple of these along with the 1500 and you can live on a campsite for quite some time without having to worry about power. Add a couple solar panels. Yeah, you'll really make it rock. So once again, and I'm going to take the cords out while we're talking. The price is $499 today. Now, for those of you who are just joining us, I do recommend that you go over to the Ampace website so we can talk. And I'm going to be checking the comments in just a second. And the answer is no, I am not related to Brad Pitt. I know I get that a lot. It's just part of the thing. I think it's the eyes, and we do actually wear the same sock size. It's crazy. Okay, so let's put this down, and let's have a look at the comments before I put this down and go on to the next item. Alrighty. All right, guys, thank you. Oh, good, and you can hear now. That's great. Yeah, once again, we had a little flub with the sound, but everything's back to normal. So, let's move on, shall we? I'm going to move this over. I'm going to put this right here, and then I'm going to grab the little guy. This is the Ampace 300, and she is adorable. Look at that. I'm going to turn it on for you before I have a seat. And there we go. I shut it off. There we go. Now it's on. You see that? There we go. Let's put it right here. And let's have a seat. And let's talk about this guy. Because this is the lightest portable power we have here. And it's very useful for people who are on the go, who want to actually go from one campsite to another. Or, and this is really important, let's say you have drones or RC cars or phones, small game units. This is ideal for taking to anywhere, the beach, camping, whatever, and being able to charge on the go. It's a very small unit, as you can see, and it's very light too. All right, this thing weighs as much as a cat, which is according to other people. Oh, I gotta say, my cat weighs more than this. All right, so let's talk about the unit itself. Now this has two USB-A's and one USB-C port. You can clearly see in the front, and then there are two ACs right here. Okay, one higher output, one lower output. Same type of screen in the middle, so you're able to see how much time you have left on the battery, the percentage, and then input and output. Just like the other ones, you can plug this into AC, and there is an adapter that actually plugs into the USB-C port, and that will allow you to run DC into this to charge it as well, solar panels and whatnot. Now, let's talk about, here we go, these little buttons. Now, this over here, see if you can see that little button right there, right? These little buttons exist on all of the devices that we have here, that's including the large one. And what this does is it allows you to select whether you're going to be using DC or AC for output. Why is that important? Well, that means that you're not adding any energy to an output, port, that you don't need to use. So, in other words, this is a good way to conserve energy with these things. Now, back of it's kind of interesting because you got a nice strong metal handle here, and its overall size is very interesting. A long time ago, I did have a motorcycle, and it had these storage compartments on either side. They were just big enough for a smaller helmet. Not one for my big head, but that's a different story. Anyway, those storage compartments would be ideal for this. They would fit right in without a problem. Really cool stuff. Now, the 300, it does work in the same way that these other ones will as well. So in other words, you can plug your computer into this, and you have that same pure sine wave, which will actually assist you, provided if there's a power outage or whatever, this thing will keep on powering your computer or other device, and it won't spike your device. That's huge. That means that you'll be able to run this thing without any worry, use it as extra power in your apartment or whatnot, and you're cool. Everything's fine with your device. If there's a power outage, very good to use in case of an emergency as well. This will work for days, powering phones and small devices. Something else to keep in mind. Now, this is on sale today, but it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and I'll tell you why. Because normally these are $249.99, right? Today, special deal, $99.99. Less than $100 for this thing, which is pretty cool considering that normally these things are really pricey, especially with the competition. But this one, once again, tested with freezing cold temperatures, super hot temperatures, over 23,000 feet elevation, way up in the mountains, Mount Everest. I kid you not, that's where these were all tested. So this does have the bona fides to be a reliable, strong device, very inexpensive. Once again today, $99.99. All right, let's check on your comments before we move on. Here we go. It is cute, isn't it? And let's see here. Oh, how much does the 300 weigh? Well, in the next slide, I believe I have it written down, but I believe it's about 8 pounds and change. That's what this weighs. So yeah, it's really light. I know I'm a big guy, but seriously, it's very light. So moving on, we're going to go and talk about the next product. Let's put this back. There we go. It's adorable, isn't it? Now we're going to talk about my favorite one. All right. And that's because it's this. Now, this is something that sits in between everything else. It's the Goldilocks zone. It's just right. And I have a device that I've owned for a few years that's similar to this, inferior in almost every way, but at about the same type of output. And I've used it, and I'm going to tell you some stories about that too. This device is the 600, and it has a lot of the components and whatnot that are coming off the big one, the 1500, but at the same time in a much smaller package. And there are accessories here, which we're going to go over in just a little bit, that actually work with this as well. But before we get going on that, let's talk about lighting. Strange, right? Well, there's a couple different lighting things going on, not only with this one, but with the 1500. So, if you look at the top, you're going to be seeing some really cool lighting effects going on. And you go onto the app and you can actually choose a couple different types of lighting. You can do pulsing, there's like a breathing one and a bunch of other ones. The big one does it as well, which I'll show you when we're all done. So it's really cool. It's kind of fun if you're going to like a concert, or more important, like a little rave, and you got this thing up and running and it's kind of cool. But there's another light too. And I wanted to talk about this. Here we go. That is your main light right there. Very good in emergencies. And once again, that's your stage one, I guess you would say. And it's brighter. And now it's strobe. Good for dancing, by the way. And then SOS. And then off. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, this unit, something very similar to it, which did have a light on it, I used for camping. And having that light on there, having it flash as a strobe, is actually a bit of a lifesaver. So stand by for that. Now, quick question for you guys. Now remember I was talking about that app? Well, I actually have that app opened right here, okay? And this is super cool because I can turn on, now I'm about to do it right now. So here's the 600. And we're just gonna open that up. So there we go. It's showing exactly what's going on with this thing right now. 80% is what its power level is at. AC output, DC input, all that stuff is 0 because it's not doing anything really. Now I'm gonna do something kind of cool, all right? So there's a settings right here, and I'm gonna click on it. And guys, I'm anything but tech savvy, so it took a while. They have to teach basically a baboon how to use a device, but I was able to do it. That's the important part. So if you look over here, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Ambient lighting. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer. There we go, about midway through ambient lighting. I'm gonna hit that, okay? And I'm gonna turn it on to diffusing, all right? There's 4 different settings: default, breathing, sparkling, and diffusing. Let's go to sparkling, shall we? That sounds a little bit better. There we go, I hit okay. Now, oh, there it goes. Yeah, I can see it. All right, here we go. Can you see that? Can you see the way it's changing? Sparkling. And once again, you could do all these different types of settings using the app. But the app, I mean, that's kind of a fun thing. But the most important part about the app is that you're able to real time dial into what this unit is doing, figure it out anywhere you are. So let's say you're not at home and you have this as part of your power supply. So at home, you're plugged into an AC unit. This is plugged into your computer, let's say, and power goes out. You can monitor real time what's going on with this. You can turn things on and turn them off as well. So that's something else to keep in mind. Right. So let's talk about this unit in general. Now you have two AC outlets, and then you have two USB-A and two USB-C outputs, and then there's the three DC. That's these two here, and then this one here, once again, for the lighter plug for your car or DC. And so it has quite a few, more than the 300 obviously, but not quite as many as the 1500. Now, story time. The unit that I had, or I still have actually, once again, older, inferior to this, but I had a 150 watt solar panel and this. I used to camp, in fact I still do from time to time, over in Moab, Utah. That is a desert area, it's beautiful, but the place that I go to camp, and I do this because on the side I'm an automotive journalist, blah, 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 is because I have no other place to go because I can't afford expensive hotels. So I go to this like remote area where there's a tent and a fire pit that I'm not allowed to use anymore. So we'll get to that. So I have one power device similar to this, and I go out there, stretch out the solar panel, and what I do is I keep my equipment, because I do have cameras and I do have a phone, and I keep them charged with the unit on. During the day, the solar panels charge the unit, and at night, not only can I use it to light my tent and also power other things, watch a movie on my pad, but I'm also able to use it to run a small hot plate. That's right. I have a low wattage hot plate that I actually can plug into this, and because I can't run a fire, I live on stew and ramen basically for several days with the hot plate, but it works. And that's kind of the point, because something like this, which doesn't weigh that much, it is, and I'll get to the weight in just a second. I think it's on a different slide, but the whole thing about this unit is that it is still portable enough to where you can backpack it in or carry it in. And once again, there's an accessory for it in terms of carrying. We'll get to that, we're so close. And this unit is super, super good at not only powering your campsite or work site, just like the big one, but in a more palatable package. But it's really good to use, let's say, if you're a DJ or someone who has to go out, you know, in the middle of nowhere and power speakers and audio devices and a turntable. I know I'm old when I call it a turntable. I'm pretty sure it's called something cool nowadays. Anyway, this weighs about 20 pounds. And just under that. And as such, it is just right for people who want to put it in the back of their car and then travel, power it while they're driving their car, just a couple hours to power it as you're driving away, and then get it to your campsite fully powered, plug it in to a solar panel, and have power that you can use throughout the day and night. And in the back, just like the big one, you do have three options for powering it. You have your AC, you have the DC connection, which is both for solar panel and once again for your car. It makes it a very easy unit to travel with. And this is something that frankly, I would love to travel with all the time. The one that I have, which is older, doesn't have as many options and all that other stuff, also saved my bacon, because same type of camping trip, right? I had a trailer, and that trailer had something like a motorcycle on it, and I got a flat tire in the middle of the night, in the middle of the desert. No street lights, nothing like that. Desert darkness. But I was able to fire up the light that it has, and it basically just had a strobe option, which is that, which is good to dance to, but it's also really good to use if you're on a highway. You put this about 10 feet away or 15 feet away from the back of the vehicle that's been stricken, and people will see you. And I had trucks zooming past me with, you know, once again, no light. So having that was a a lifesaver, and I was very grateful for having that. So a unit like this is sort of a multi-purpose tool in terms of its size, capability, output, you name it. Truly a fantastic thing to have, one of my favorites. And the question, of course, is, well, how much does one of these run? Well, normally it's $449.99. Yeah, but not today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a 56% savings today, $199 for this device. Once again, my favorite amongst all of these, and a huge savings. Once again, $199 for this unit. Weighs in around 20 pounds. It's super quiet. It has the same tech that's in the 1500, but in a much smaller package. Now, let's look at the comments. And I'm going to remind you guys that if you're tuning in right now, to go over to Ampace, go to their website, so that way you can join the conversation. So let's have a look here. And let's see. Looks like we had that sound issue already resolved. It's really not that heavy. I know we're talking about the old question about the little guy, which was around 8 pounds. But at 20 pounds, it's easy enough for somebody to throw into a car and kind of leave it and forget it. And as I said before, this is a fantastic thing to have like under the bed or next to the bed, near your computer station, so you can have this plugged in full time, all the time, and use it as a power source in case of a brownout or a blackout. We do live in a country where that happens often, and you'll be able to also monitor this using the app. Once again, $199 on sale. Eh? Pretty cool, right? Okay, so where do we go from here? Well, let's talk about how you can carry something like this around. Yeah, I know there's a really cool handle up here, and that's great, but it just so happens that they did produce something that you could put this in, and it's pretty cool. So let me put this away. Alrighty. And I'm gonna grab this, if I can manage to stand and not fall down while I'm doing it. I'm just so overjoyed, I just can't handle it. Here we go, the bag. This bag is specifically made to hold the 600. And let's talk about it, because there's a little bit more going on here than just a regular storage bag, and that's because they actually use some really cool material. Not only does it have these really beefy, awesome zippers, I mean, they're like manly zippers, but this is used in a special type of material. This is a PEVA bag that has IPX6 water resistant capability, meaning that if you're shooting at it with a hose, high pressure, water will not get in, and it is water resistant. Not only that, but every panel is well padded. So there's a padding that's actually inside. It's not just like some flimsy stuff going on here. And that is really good insulation, especially for those of you who have some computer chips and whatnot, or perhaps you have other devices, batteries that you need to store. This top section works very well for that. But there's more, because there's a bunch of pockets, including these side pockets, which are good for water bottles, cans and sodas and whatnot, but also for other equipment. This is actually a supremely cool camera bag, which I'm very happy about. Here's another one over here, this net, which is great to have. And then there's a front zipper, and the front zipper, once again, opens up and gives you some pretty decent space. This is actually where I would put certain equipment like lens diffusers, caps and whatnot. This would be a great place to put it so you don't forget them. And then of course, you have the upper section right here, and that is, sorry, it's a lot of zippers. Here's the other zipper. And I'm gonna open that up and pop up. And very thick material here, thick sidewalls. So when you put the battery in here, it's well protected. And because in my off time, I'm actually a professional handbag model. No, I'm not, but wanted to show you guys basically how it looks. Now, I'm a big guy, but here we go. By the way, this is padded as well, which is nice. I'm gonna bring this up here. Looking pretty smart, right? Look at that. Okay, so quick question for you. How much do you think something like this is worth? Well, they were on sale for $59.99, which is actually pretty good. But today things have changed. Today, the price for this, $39.99. Once again, $39.99 today. There you go. So a great pairing with the 600. And at the end of this broadcast, we're actually going to talk about bundles because there are many different bundles that you can put together here and save even more. Stay tuned for that. All right, let me put this here and I'm going to check on your comments. And yeah, I know I should have probably worn something other than a khaki color. Makes my eyes look strange. All right, let's talk about what's going on here. All right, so let's move on, shall we? Because the next thing we have is solar panels. Solar electricity. As some people would say, free electricity. Not exactly free, but discounted today. All right, so let's talk about the 100 watt, which is something I have on my lap right here. I'm gonna put the bag. This is the bag it comes in, by the way. There we go. Now, the bag, by the way, comes with the 100 watt panel. And the 100 watt panel, the cool thing about it is essentially the perfect power source for these smaller guys when you're going camping and when you're gonna go off the grid, or in the case of an emergency. And part of the reason why is this thing's so small and light that you can keep it in the back of your car or in your garage or even in a closet and then pop this out in case you do have a power issue. Now, I used to live in Denver, Colorado, and we've had brownouts and blackouts because of snowstorms. Some of them pretty bad, frankly. So I'm gonna move this. Now, by the way, this case is kind of cool because the back, this part is actually rigid. So very protective of the solar panel. And I'm just gonna put this off to the side. We're gonna show you this. There we go. Both sides are basically the same. Now, this solar panel is super cool because it's super fast to hook up. It doesn't take long at all. There are clasps on the sides. You pop those, and then there's a magnetic coupler right here between the handles. So that'll just pop right apart and you can open it up. But before we go there, what we're going to do is we're going to open up this section here. All right. Now this, well, this is simply your cord. This is what you plug into these various power banks. And this will give you power as long as there's some daylight out there. So moving on to the next slide, we're going to talk about that different power. And that means this. Here we go. Whoa, look at that. Now, this is a very different type of solar cell than what you're used to seeing. So this is a monocrystalline derived component, and it is water resistant, very, very strong, but most importantly is extremely efficient. Now, what do I mean by efficiency? Up to 23% conversion efficiency. Now, a lot of solar panels, including the one I have, are like 15%. Some of them may be close to 20, but 23% is huge. What does that mean? Well, solar panels, when they are angled at the sun and they're getting some sunlight, as long as they're getting sunlight, right? Well, they take that energy and they push that into an electronic device, a storage unit, something along those lines. Now, if it's only 15%, that means all that radiated heat, sunlight, everything else that's hitting this, only a little tiny bit is actually trickling out. But at 23%, you're getting a lot more power put into those devices, meaning that even though this is a 100 watt solar panel, it's an extremely efficient one. And it actually works more efficiently than my 150 watt older solar panel that I have. And it's using new tech and it's extremely strong and once again, water resistant. Now I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to show you how big this is, but with a caveat. So here we go. I'm going to stand up. All right. Now I am 6'1", and I'm going to open this up. Okay, I'm going to let it go to the floor here. There we go. So as you can see, let's see if I can hold it just right. There we go. There's the whole thing. Ta-da! And it's lightweight, and we'll go over the weight in just a minute. And it's easy to set up at any campsite. And the reason why it's so easy to set up is because it has these double kickstands. See how that comes out like that? Well, the reason why is because what you would do is you'd use this kickstand and then this one down here, right? and you would go like this at your campsite. And I know this is like super, super wide right now, but it's all good. And this, when it's leaning back on that kickstand, and if you angle it the right way, you'll be getting sunlight throughout the day. And that's the important part. It doesn't have to be directly pointed at the sun. As long as it's getting in its arc, you'll be able to use this, once again, 23% efficiency in terms of getting that power out of this unit and putting it into your devices. That's huge. All right, so I'm gonna sit back down here, put that right there. All right, so very efficient, very lightweight solar panel, weighs 10.3 pounds. So pretty lightweight, very cool to use in the car. See how thin it is? You could slide this, you know how you have like that little package section? When you open your trunk, usually there's like an extra little lid you can open up. This will fit right in there, no problem. Yeah, pretty cool, right? So let's talk about something else that's cool. Today's pricing, because today is a sales day. So today, normally these units go for $299.99, but not today. Today, $249. That's right, this is on sale. That includes this very handsome carrying case. $249. I think that's super cool, guys. Now, another thing that you should keep in mind, this is going to be part of some bundles that we're going to be talking about at the end of this broadcast. So, for those of you who are curious about getting something like this with other units, stay tuned. Once again, $249 for today. There you go. Now, before we move on, I do want to quickly check and see if there's any messages. There we go. Here it is. Okay. And yes, the answer is yes. Solar panels work with all the power banks. That's including the large battery, the 1500, the 600, and the 300. The 100 watt and the 200 watt, which I'm about to show you, will work with all of those. So once again, moving on to the big one, we're going to be talking about one more sale price. And I mean big, it's basically twice the size as the other one because it's a 200 as opposed to a 100. And here it is. Oh yeah, it's big. And this is something that is ideal for people who want to go off the grid and like mean it, right? Because this will give you 200 watts of power. It has all the same tech as the other one. So it has the crystalline panels, just like the other one, which are super efficient. That's 23% efficiency per conversion, but in a much larger and much wider panel. And I'll show you how much larger this is in just a second because I'm going to stand up with it. And yeah, there's quite a lot, there's a ton going on here. But the cool thing is, even though it's a much bigger unit, it's really not that much wider, right? So you get this pouch up here. Now the cool thing about this is that obviously, yes, this is where all the cordage goes, where you want to plug this in. Here we go. So all of that is stored in here, so you can plug it into your portable power. But there's also a little extra space in there in case you want to add some other components. Just something to think about. And just like the other one, it has the kickstands as well. And these, by the way, just like the other one, have a magnetic connection here, so they'll stay even if you're moving it around. Oh, and they've got rubber tips here too, which is actually very nice. I didn't notice that before. Learn something new every day. Now, here comes the fun part. I'm going to show you how big it is. Now, once again, these are actually made to be extended horizontally. That's why these kickstands are here. However, given the space that I have with the camera here, I'm going to show you how big it is vertically. And I'm going to remind you guys that I am 6'1". So I'm going to lay that down there. Here we go. Going to stand up, and I'm going to lift this up briefly. Okay, it's still on the floor, still on the floor, still on the floor. Okay, it's just off the floor now. And I'm pretty sure it goes off the screen. This thing is huge. But remember, it has to make 200 watts of power. So all that power has to come from larger panels. And these larger panels, well, they do the trick. There we go. And up. There goes the kickstand. And we are good. I just want to make sure everything's put away. That was easy. Anyway, so I bet you guys are wondering, okay, how much does a product like this cost? Well, it is normally $599, but today, $449. That's right. It went from $599.99 to $449. It's a major savings. By the way, if you're curious, it weighs just under 19 pounds. So yeah, it's more heft than the other one, but it's not too bad. Really good unit for people who have RVs and want to strap something like this to the roof. They can actually tie it down and run power all day long into their portable power banks. So once again, price is $449 for the big boy. 200 watts of power. Okay, now, shall we talk about bundling? I think so, and that's on the next slide. So I'm gonna move this over here and I'm gonna put this one right here. There we go. Gotta have a neat presentation. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move a few things and bring the Ampace 1500 back up to my lap. There we go. By the way, remember I was talking about the ambient lighting? This has it too. See that right up there? That's right. And it does exactly the same thing as the 600. It can pulse and sparkle. We've got all those modes. Okay, so let's talk about bundling, because today there are a bunch of bundling package discounts available. So let's start off with the Ampace Andes 300 watt with the 100 watt solar panel. So that's the little guys. That's the solar panel here. Okay, and that's the 300. Okay, super, super cool to use for camping, especially for people who want to keep it very lightweight, and for emergency use, great to keep in your car. Both of these things are very small and you can keep them out of sight and out of mind until you need them. And of course, good to use like apartment living if you want that extra power source in case of an emergency. So, what's the price? What do you reckon? Well, today, the 100 watt solar panel and the 300, $399. Ta-da! Pretty good, right? I thought so. Yeah, it's a really good pairing. And it makes a lot of sense because once again, both are lightweight, and this way you're able to keep good power for those people who need compact electricity. It's a good way to look at it, right? Okay, let's quickly look and see if there's any comments. By the way, thank you again for joining me. And if you've just joined me, remember to go over to Ampace, their website, in order to join in to the live chat. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the next one, which is the Ampace Andes 600 Pro plus the 200, that's the big one, solar panel. Okay, so big solar panel right here, and the 600, my favorite device here, and that's this guy right here. So these two paired up normally would be $999, okay? But today, the 600 and the 200 solar panel, $649. That's right, folks. $649 for the 200 watt solar panel and the 600. That's pretty good. That's really good for people who have to go to work sites and bigger campsites and stay for a fairly long duration, because you're able to power this unit using the sun, and you're able to do it for a relatively reasonable price, right? But things get better, because you bet you were wondering about the big guy here. Well, big guy is well paired with the 200 watt solar panel. Okay, so this is the 1500, as we've talked about before. There we go. And this is the 200 watt solar panel. Now, normally these are $1,799. That's the two of these together. However, today, 47% off. The total price is $949 for the 1500 and the 200 watt solar panel. Yeah. Pretty cool, right? So just to recap, as we're moving on, and I'm going to quickly check and just make sure that no final comments here. Looks like we're doing pretty good. Yes, it's huge, isn't it? Yeah, so somebody was commenting on the size of the 200, and yeah, the 200 is really massive when you open it up. It's kind of like origami too, because you can't really tell how big it is just by this. This is relatively small and all that, but boy, oh boy, when you open it up, it's huge, which is really good because you want those panels as big as possible to get as much energy. Gotcha, okay. So to wrap up, let's talk about the 3 different power units, actually the 4 different power units. And I'm gonna bring on this one here, just to remind you guys. So this, there we go, up here, 1500 down below, you've seen. Once again, to remind you, this is the extra power bank, and up to 7 of these can be used at the same time, which is great for people who need to power something for a very long period of time, and then you can use solar panels to continue power to those extra power banks. And then we have the 300, that's right here. Super lightweight, very good to use for people who want to do lightweight camping but need extra power. And then the 600, my personal favorite, really the multitask tool of the group. And then we covered the 100-watt solar panel right here. And this is great for camping, very compact and easy to move around. And then of course, the 200, yes. And finally, unless I forget, which I do not want to forget, we also have the bag for the 600. There we go, bag and 600. Everything you see here is on sale. And as I mentioned before, we are talking about some great bundle packages. This is great stuff to use for those people who need power where there is no power, or to have that backup power when needed. We live in an environment right now where having a little bit of green power, something that is sustainable and that is easy enough to use all the time, that can keep your computers and other equipment running, CPAP machines, things like that. These things can keep them running even when you lose power. And then you have solar panels that can keep the power going to the batteries. It makes a lot of sense, right? Guys, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you learned something here. And remember, check out all the devices that we have on the Ampace website. I'll see you next time. Thanks again.